Alright, so here's the deal. This is my Supra, and it's burning quite a bit of oil. It was a lot of oil. It was like a quart every 50 or 60 miles. I mean, you can see it was just spitting oil out of the exhaust. So that's why I'm doing this little test. I checked all the spark plugs, put a lighter in there because one of them was wet and shot out like a 2-foot flame. That was kind of interesting. But I'm trying to figure out where the oil is coming from. The engine's new, the head's new. I checked the spark plugs. So I really can't figure out where the oil is coming from. Originally, I thought it was from the turbo. After I rebuilt the engine, I sent the turbo back to get rebuilt by Precision, and so that's where I'm at. So the only thing I can think of where it's coming from is from the turbocharger. So I'm gonna run the car with no turbo, see if it smokes oil, just to make 100% sure that it is the turbo, and then I'm gonna send this video to Precision when I send the turbo out to show them that I did actually go through some serious troubleshooting to make 100% sure that it was the turbo and nothing else, and go from there. I suspect that this turbo somehow or another is still leaking oil into the exhaust housing, and I know a lot of you are probably going to say that this isn't the right way to take the turbo apart and it's risky, and you would be right. This is not the way I would normally recommend to take the turbo off, but life is all about risks, right? So we're going to be really careful so we don't nick the exducer. And I can tell you right away by looking at this that there's a lot of oil coming from somewhere, and it looks like the turbo. Thank God. There is a possibility that it's coming from inside the engine, but from the looks of the spark plugs, it would have to be coming from, I would say, from the exhaust port outward. So the only possibility here is if the oil was dumping into the exhaust port and coming through the header into the turbo. But I guess we'll see. Now, to block the gaping hole in the turbo, since there's no compressor, I'm just going to use a electrical box cover. Going to get the plasma, cut this out, drill some holes, and I'm actually really curious to see how this car is going to run and sound with no turbo. I think it's going to be kind of weird. No turbo spooling sound, nothing. Looks like I'm all set to drive the Supra with no turbo. I have the oil feed line bypassed going directly into the oil pan. And last but not least, I put a piece of ventilation pipe to connect the air filter into the intercooler tube, which normally comes from the turbocharger. Let's take the car for a drive and see how it feels with no turbo. Alright, so it feels, it feels like it usually does with the turbo. It sounds about the same, but I don't hear that little whistling sound that I normally hear in the exhaust. Okay, so I'm out on the street. I'm gonna go to a straightaway and just floor it and see how it feels throughout the power band. Obviously, it doesn't have as much power as it has with a turbocharger, and I don't hear that turbocharger whistle that I love so much. Alright, here we go. So it feels and sounds almost the same from 1,000 RPM up to about 2,500. It sounds about the same, has about the same amount of power, but after 2,500 it feels like kind of dead, and then after 4,500 it feels completely flat. No, it's not really pulling. I mean, it still feels pretty fast with no turbo, but alright, so I just drove about, I don't know, 5 or 6 blocks. That was enough for me with no turbo. I have a big turbo in the garage. It was the original turbo I had on this car. I think it's a 76 or a 78 millimeter compressor. It's big and it's really laggy, but I'm gonna go back to the garage, throw that turbo on, and take the car for one more drive before I end this video. I just took the car for a drive with no turbo and just that exhaust housing, and as you can see, there's clearly no oil inside of that housing. It's completely dry. So that oil is definitely coming from the turbocharger. Here's where I'm at. I got the larger 76 millimeter turbo installed, the blow off valves, everything's pretty much ready to go. Out of curiosity, I'm gonna take it for a drive and see what it does. I know it makes absolutely no smoke with just the turbo housing and no turbo. And this is the way I'm gonna drive it while I send the other turbo back to Precision to get rebuilt or get checked out. And yeah, let's see how it drives with the large turbo. Well, there you go. Not only did the Supra not burn oil with the turbo removed, but it also didn't burn oil with the larger turbocharger. And that tells me 100% for sure that the oil is coming from the turbo. Yeah, that being said, check out my other channel, Warped Perception. I have a few other channels as well on YouTube. Tell me what you think in the comments below. Share your thoughts. Subscribe if you like this kind of stuff. And yeah, see you next time.